Hello and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler and I'm guilty. I've been back out on the r/data engineering subreddit. And it's been kind of interesting reading through some of these additional things. And I found one common theme, I guess you could say, in terms of people defending Fabric, which we'll get into in a second. But it's like here's like one of the most recent threads: Microsoft Fabric or Snowflake, choosing the right solution. Dude, it's not even a question. Fabric is an alpha product. You don't have to look far in the sub to see some insane Fabric stories because of how unstable it currently is. And then somebody links the most recent one, which is pretty shocking, I gotta say. So, been a long 2 days. Basically, they spent 3 months worth of work. They tried to integrate the workspace into DevOps, and basically it wiped away 3 months worth of work because apparently lake houses can't be source controlled. And they spoke to Microsoft and they said, "Well, it's a known issue," but they literally just uploaded the issue that day. So this is like 5 days ago, right? So that kind of sucks, right? So basically, Fabric is so unstable that it'll just irreversibly wipe out your work that you've done over months and months, right? So that's bad. But there are, and I don't know if they're in any of these threads, but I've seen it in other threads where people defending Fabric, and the defense of Fabric goes along these lines, right? Well, Power BI sucked for the first 2 years, and it was bad, but then now it's an industry leading product, right? And then they say like, well, so Fabric, even though it sucked for these first 2 years, it'll eventually be the de facto standard, right? And one that is just insanely the logical fallacy of that statement, number one, is just insane to me because you don't have to look very far, right? For a list of failed Microsoft, you know, software, hardware, operating systems, you name it. Microsoft Bob being probably chief among them, killed off after 10 months, right? I mean, it sucked when it came out and it sucked when they killed it, right? And that's the case for a huge number of Microsoft hardware, software, you name it. In fact, there's a website. This one's probably one of the coolest ones. These things are all over these lists of failed Microsoft products, right? They're all over the place, right? Killed by Microsoft, right? So this one, it just keeps going on and on and on and on. And every one of these, a lot of these are like, let's see, let's find it. Performance point, right? Where's performance point? There it is. Performance point server. Yep. It sucked when it was released. It sucked after 5 years, right? It didn't go anywhere, right? And that's the case for a huge number of Microsoft products, right? But people just gloss over this type of stuff. So you can't just say just because a product sucked on release and now they had one win with Power BI, right? It sucked when it came out, you know. But if you so but the problem is Fabric is not Power BI as well. It's not even close to being Power BI. In terms of Power BI was free when it came out, right? Absolutely free. And had it wide business per people, business user appeal, right? Its technologies were rock solid, right? They were built into Excel, and that's where most people got familiar with them originally, particularly Power Query, right? And it solved a common business problem, right? The way I got into Power BI probably is very, very it's much the same as a ton of other people out there, right? I People were sending me this Excel file, this CSV file every week, and I'd have to clean it all up and reformat it and blah blah blah, do all this work to it. And then with Power Query and Power BI came along, and I could basically automate that task, and boom, it was done. And I didn't have to spend a couple hours every week doing that process, right? So huge amounts of real world problem solving that this product solved. Power BI. You can't say the same of Fabric, right? Fabric is a solution looking for a problem, at least from a business, user perspective. If I put myself in my business user perspective, oh, I got this CSV file that people are sending me every week, and I need to clean it all up and do data transformation and generate reports off of it, right? I can automate that entire process with Power BI Desktop. I'm probably not thinking to myself, what I need to do is to set up a drop folder, and then I'll use Azure Data Factory to connect to that, and then pipe that information into a lake house. And I mean, you think business users are that's what they're thinking, right? So there's no comparison between Power BI, the success that Power BI has had and has, right, compared to what even the potential is for Microsoft Fabric. The audiences aren't the same. There's just nothing similar between them, other than one thing, I think. One thing that strikes me as Power BI being terrible for the first 2 years was that they were trying to shoehorn Power BI into SharePoint as a platform, right? They had, if you remember back in the day with Power BI Publisher, and basically the service was really kind of SharePoint, and it was like kind of a layer on top of SharePoint, and it was a god awful mess. It was terrible, right? And they really didn't get better until they basically just ripped it out of SharePoint, right? Created their own service for it, their own system, right? They dumped Publisher and created Power BI Desktop around the same time, right? That's when it really took off, right? And I see similarities with Fabric in that regard. It's like they're trying to take this Azure Synapse and these Fabric technologies, workloads, and they're trying to shoehorn it into the Power BI, right? The service that the Power BI has. And it just seems like that is causing more problems. Just in the same way that when they tried to shoehorn Power BI into SharePoint, right, it caused all kinds of problems and they had to give up. And I just wonder, maybe at some point Microsoft will wise up and be like, hey, we just need to go and create Fabric over here. Right? I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, Fabric is not Power BI. There is no argument where you say, well, Power BI sucked for 2 years, and then became industry leading, and now that's so therefore Fabric is going to suck for 2 years and become industry leading. I don't see it. Right? There's just no comparison between the two, and it's a huge logical fallacy. So anybody that's thinking that is an idiot, in my opinion. So that's all I had for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.